This is why you find massive US troop presence in countries like Bahrain and Qatar. Okay, yes?
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
What is the size of the Iranian military army? I remember reading a report several years ago that it could be up to 200,000.
I'm not
Is
certain, but they
standard?
mustered a large army when they were fighting with Iraq. They're a smaller population, but they had a larger army and difficult terrain. So yeah, I'm not sure what it is. Yeah. So yeah, UAE is just 7 cities. Yeah, and I lived in the UAE for many years. I really had a good time there. It was good for me. So yeah. So now to continue, Israel is outmanned and outgunned by its enemies and relies on a qualitative advantage. There are, roughly speaking, 177,000 active Israeli troops versus a combined 2.36 million Islamic troops. Okay? So if that's 200,000, that's 2.4 million. That is a dozen times more troops. Understand, they're outnumbered roughly 12 to 1. Now, new weapon systems are expensive. Israel cannot afford them on its own. Believe it or not, Israel is not floating on oil. And aid from the United States is vital to its security. Sergeant Richard Lloyd, should the US protect these Arab nations? Look, I would say to some degree, yes. Look, I worked there. Look, I used to do some fun stuff. Okay, I went to a lot of fun places, and I saw a lot of things I wasn't allowed to speak about at the time, or I'd go to jail. Let's put it that way. Qatar was terrified that Saudi would invade. And there was one time that Saudi did come across the border because of some issues, and in Bahrain. And this is why they have a large US presence there, to help the Saudis leave politely if things get a little, tense. So understand that there's a lot going on behind the scenes. There's a great deal going on behind the scenes. Iran, there was a time that, let's just say there's a lot of real estate in the Middle East. There's lots of little places. You can hide a lot behind a dune, including a full military airbase. Let's say that. And I designed the security systems for maybe some of these places. You never know. And what happened is that there was at one point a real, genuine fear that Iran would actually do something crazy. And I can tell you, at one time, when you come around a bend and you go over the dune and you see 50 F-35s, F-22s, and 20 B-2 bombers on a runway that shouldn't be there. Like, they're all in England, right? For sure, they're in England. I'm in England right now with these dunes behind me. So yeah, there were some serious problems, and these deterrents, things do happen that do not appear on the news. Understand, whole entire wars have been fought in the Middle East that you've never heard of. Entire hot battles have occurred that you've never heard a peep about. Not a peep, believe me. Right, so Israel's enemies have numerous suppliers, but Israel relies almost entirely on the United States, hence the genocidal agenda to destroy the US-Israel relationship. So look, to maintain peace and stability in the Middle East, yes, Saudi does need to be protected from Iran because Iran's a real threat. It's a genuine threat. But Qatar, of course, is playing dirty. The Saudis themselves are not clean. And however, if you attach a price to that support, you can politically influence those countries and force them into certain behaviors. You can, and as long as you understand you're dealing with a tricky enemy, yes, it can be done, but we are naive as the West. Now, moving on. Your thoughts, Thunderous? Okay, now, top 10 US weapons clients. Now, everyone says Israel, Israel, Israel. Well, Saudi Arabia is America's #1 weapon customer for a decade now. So according to data from Stockholm International, blah-de-blah-de-blah, the biggest import of arms from the US from 2009 to 2018 was Saudi Arabia. Okay, so let's have a look. This is Saudi Arabia, $13.5 billion, if I have that correct. Then Australia. I have no idea who Australia is fighting against, except its own population right now, but okay. The UAE, $7 billion. South Korea. Okay, they've got North Korea to deal with. Then you have Iraq, Singapore, Turkey, Japan, Taiwan. Notice Israel is absent from this list. The Saudis have a lot of money. Okay? So, yeah, your thoughts, Thunderous?
I was just thinking, when you consider that Saudi Arabia is #1, I've often thought when you look at these numbers that Saudi Arabia's purchase or volume of American weaponry Is, in your opinion and estimation, do you think that they buy such large quantities deliberately in order to filter it down to their own groups and subgroups in their wars against other, other factions within themselves?
I'd say,
But
look, for
also,
instance, I can tell you now, again, look, I cannot prove some of the what I'm saying, but I worked in that industry. I spent a lot of time with a lot of fun people, right? For instance, the Saudi king at the time, there was one time, and even in the UAE, to my knowledge, the the close echelon, the close protection, let's say the close protection team around some of these heads of state are not their own people. For instance, a lot of their military is outsourced to other countries, to professionals from other countries. The officers may be from their countries, but the military itself, the professional military, are from other countries. And two, the close protection teams around many of the heads of state are, crazy enough, in the Middle East, Israelis. Okay? South Africans, like myself, and Israelis. Because they trust them for their professionalism. They don't always trust their own. And of course, some of this stuff would find its way accidentally, just by sheer accident. I was in Iraq at the time, and Barack Obama, for the second or third time, accidentally, just by accident, I was about 20 k's behind the ISIS front line, doing some work out there because ISIS was getting some work done very effectively against the Iraqis at the time, and I was called in to see if I could lend a hand. And Barack Obama just accidentally landed a metric crap ton of arms on the ISIS side of the line, just by sheer accident. And he did that more than once. And I mean, people were like, is this an accident? Because look, you ask me, I don't think it was an accident. I think he was arming them. Your thoughts?
no, look, I'm not a military man, but I seem to recall in my own thinking at the time that why was ISIS in a certain amount of number? Where did they get the logistics? Because it's not just about manpower; it's the logistics behind the
Yes.
the flags, the propaganda machine. That is all requiring dollars. Yet there's nobody chasing the dollars. And then when they were able to defeat an Iraqi army that were trained by the Americans, and when the Iraqi army fled from ISIS, they left their weapons behind. And as a man that's not military educated, I did think to myself, well, why did they not destroy the weapons? You don't leave the weapons there.
So is the story true? Is that the narrative? Is it true? Were they deliberately leaving the weapons? Was it just fear and terror that they ran, or were they donating those weapons?
This is where I'm saying to you, the narrative did not make sense with the outcome.
Right, exactly.